Republic Day, India's Republic Day, especially meant to bring into focus stories about so many people who have contributed to our freedom struggle, who have not been heard or who have been heard very, very less, or whose stories are limited to certain sections of the country alone. People have not heard much about them. There is a very popular storytelling saying. We say if the lion does not learn to tell its story, you will always hear the hunter's version. The hunter will say, I looked at it, the tiger was running from me, I shot the tiger. But what is the tiger's version? That is one aspect. Similarly, when you are reading a story, most of the stories are written, especially historical accounts, are written by the invader. So invader will always write about himself gloriously. He will never write about himself having lost anything. Even if he has lost, he will say how he lost very gloriously in the process. So this session, today's session is not standing on judgment on anything. It is not finding fault with anyone. It is purely reflective. We have to think. That is my aim. And I've got a number of stories for you today from India's freedom movement. And before we start, I mean, Republic Day is around the corner. All of us should know something about Republic Day. The flag hoisting that is done on Independence Day and Republic Day are two different functions. On Independence Day, the flag is hoisted. On Republic Day, the flag will already be hoisted. It will just be opened. This is something all of us should know. So on Republic Day, it is unfurling. On Independence Day, it is raising or hoisting the flag. These are two things. So let us go to the story. There is a very popular song. De di hame azad bina khadag bina dhal. That means we got independence. It is like somebody came into my house. He occupied my property. So I went and told him, sir, what you are doing is wrong, sir, go, sir. And he went in. Can you believe it? So that is one thing I'm going to ask. So I'm going to take you to 1890 period, 19th century, 18th century, 19th century, and 20th century. 3 centuries we are going to cover. And I'm going to cover the period before India became a British crown, went under the British crown. It was under the East India Company. And then it went under the British crown. I'm going to cover both these periods. I'm going to cover stories of people who are not heard of. And we'll see why they are not heard of. It's a matter of, I'm not going to sit on judgment on that. Okay. I'm going to start this story in the 18th century. 18th century, 1730 to 1796 in the South Indian, now present district called Shivaganga. Okay. During the Shivaganga period there was a queen. There was a queen there by name Velu Nachiyar. Okay. Velu Nachiyar was the only child of her. Velu Nachiyar was the only child of her parents. And coming from a princely family, she was taught all aspects of warfare. She was very good in, they call it that stick fighting. In South, it is called Shilamb. She was a very good swordswoman. She was a very good wrestler also. And she was very able. She was an able horse rider. And those days, imagine 1740, 50, 60, 18th century, she was fluent in English and French. She was one of those rare Indians who also knew how to speak the language of, 1 minute, please. So she was in that kingdom kind of thing. So very educated, well-educated person. She married the king of Shivaganga. She was born to a princely family. She married the king of Shivaganga. And like in those days, India was under the East India Company. India was not under the East India Company. Remember, it is like somebody coming to sell something in your house. These days we are all buying online. Those days, people used to come home, especially if you have lived in places like Bombay, Kolkata. Somebody will come on Ferryvela, will knock your house. He will come in. He will have clothes, and the entire building will congregate there. Everybody, I want so much clothes. I want so much clothes. He came to sell something like that, and slowly started running your household. And he imposed taxes on our Indian kings and queens. And many of these fellows quietly paid. What for, we don't know. But they paid. So this king of Shivaganga district said, I am not paying you anything. You can go take a walk. So they had a battle. And the battle was allowed because whoever was the king of that area, there was one weak king in the Delhi and there was another weak king. So this king gave them powers. So they said, the king has given us orders. So they had a battle. In that battle, Velu Nachiyar's husband was killed. And like it happens. The British, they act as though they are treating you very, very honorably. So they said, no, king is dead. There's no problem with the peace with the family and things like that. And she had a daughter. The British had a very nice trick, They have something called doctrine of lapse. That is, if the king does not have a male heir or does not have a proper male heir, that if it's adopted or something like that, the kingdom will automatically devolve with the company. Company will take over the administration. And the Raja will become a puppet, will get a pension. So she was afraid that this will what will happen. And she was told, don't worry, we are there, we will take care of you and things like that. So she, after her husband's death, she managed the kingdom for some time, knowing what was in the British mind. She was very brave. She was very, very, very good in negotiations. She tried to establish contact with Hyder Ali and forge an alliance so that she could defeat the British. But the British very cleverly, what they did, surrounded her with a lot of spies. And who are the spies? Not SPIC, not Dalchini and all that. These are SPIES, spies. Who are the spies? Usually in India, our people are our spies. So Velu Nachiyar's Silambam teacher, he was the spy, the British informer. And this was how she was living. And during the night, somebody tried to make a some attack, a treacherous attack on her. With the help of her personal bodyguard, which will also be a part of the story, she overcame the attack. She also had various assaults and attacks on her person, which with the help of her assistant, loyal bodyguard, she warded off. Then she raised this bodyguard of hers to the level of a commander-in-chief. And this girl's name was Queely. Okay. Queely is the first known special protection guard. And she herself was exceptional, all these, Tai Chi and all these things. She was very good in combat, arm-to-arm combat. She was very good in the use of the dagger. She was excellent in, what is called karate today, free arm fighting. And Queely was a loyal bodyguard of Velu Nachiyar. So they were suspecting, as the British are like, nice story. All you would have heard of the story of the little red riding hood. In the Vesha of a grandmother, there is a wolf sitting. They're always very nice. Oh, royal sir, always. They will always have their head. Never ever trust a fellow who doesn't look you into the eye, okay? Suppose somebody says, "Oh, sir, I am your servant," but does not look you, be careful. British were like that. They treacherous, this is how they brought down various kingdoms. And this lady was also in their hit lists. They knew Velu Nachiyar had no support and there was only a daughter and her father had become old. They thought she is weak. We will in due course crush her. And they slowly built up an armory inside Shivaganga. And Velu Nachiyar also had her spies who used to report to her where they are hiding weapons and things like that. They said, no weapon, nothing at all. But they hid the weapons in the temple complex. Attached to the Shivaganga palace, there was a temple complex. They hid all their weapons in the temple complex. And the smart lady quickly found it out. How to attack? Because she does not have forces to fight. So quickly hatched a plan. And whoever came to see Velu Nachiyar, they were also doing, body frisking was done so that they don't bring arsenal or weapons inside. So she was totally isolated. There was no way she could bring arms and she could try to have, she could not have any weapons to fight and things like that. And on the other side, the British was slowly building up their armory. This was the situation. Quickly saw this. So Quickly said, I know how to do it. And she told Velu Nachiyar, trust me. She said, yes, I trust you. So in one of the very, very auspicious Tamil months, the month is born now. Okay, Tam is born now. Thai Masam, we say in Tamil Nadu, this is called Thai Masam. Auspicious month, Uttarayana. During one of these months, they do Devi Aradhana on Fridays. So Quickly arranged a Devi Aradhana in the temple. And when you do Devi Aradhana, what do? You carry a bowl of ghee and one camphor bit. That is what you offer to the temple. You pour ghee on the deity and put the camphor on the plate side so that when they do the Deepa Arati, that's how they will use that camphor. So Quickly there was seated, dressed like goddess Durga. She told everybody, she acted as though she was in a trance. She said, pour all the ghee on my head and put the camphor on the plate next to me. So imagine, thousands of ladies came and poured ghee on Quickly's head. Everybody, those days, pure ghee, not your ghee sold in the market. They poured it on her head and she was totally soaked in ghee. She took a long stick, picked up a couple of camphor bits, lit it in the lamp and lighted herself. And walked and jumped into the British armory. The entire armory blew up in flames. All the arms, ammunition, pataka, everything went up like Diwali. The Britishers said, oh my God, we can't fight this. So quietly they left. Velu Nachiyar inherited the kingdom from back to, she re-inherited her kingdom. She made her daughter the course. Lived between the years 1730 and 1796. Have you ever read about Velu Nachiyar in your history books? This is possibly the first time many of you are hearing. So, if the lion does not write the history, the hunter will write. Velu Nachiyar will be painted as one-liner somewhere in our history books. I have not read about Velu Nachiyar at all. Her statue is still there in Shivaganga Palace. You should also go see Quickly's statue. And Quickly is worshipped as a deity. She is worshipped as a deity. People who come to South, please go to Shivaganga, have darshan of Velu Nachiyar and Quickly. Two, in fact, Velu Nachiyar was the first known female fighter, freedom fighter, and Quickly was the first known special security guard, and suicide bomb squad. And she's the first known freedom fighter who fought for India's freedom, 1730 to 1796. And Queely lived from 1700 to 1780. She was older. She was older to Velu Nachiyar, very close friend, bodyguard, and she rose up to be the commander-in-chief. This should be a name we should write down in our books and look into her story. This is the story of Velu Nachiyar and Queely from the year 1730 to 1796. Okay. I am taking you next step. Next step to the time of a warrior called Veera Pandiya Kattabomman. In the north, nobody has heard of this name. So Veera Pandiya Kattabomman was from the period 1760 to 1799. Those days in South India, the districts were organized into what is called palayas. Okay, and there was a chieftain appointed to the palaya by the king. He was called the Palayakara. In English, they will transfer it as Polygor. Polygor, I still don't understand. Palayakara. The Palayakara is allowed to maintain this estate as though he is a king. He is referred to as Raja. He is maintained as though he is a king. He is allowed to maintain his private army. He will raise and send the revenue to the main king, the Pandya king. That was how the kingdom was. And after the rule, the Muslims took over. He said, "You are not my king. Why should I give it to you?" Then the East India Company took over. The East India Company sent people to him. They said, one of the conversations, this Veera Pandiya Kattabomman was a very strategic negotiator also. So somebody who came on behalf of the East India Company said, "See, we are not asking for anything. We are asking for only 1 rupee. Why can't you pay? See, look at the way I am imposing tax on you, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to ask you only 1 rupee. Where is the problem?" Kattabomma's reply was, "See, you asked me 1 lakh rupees as assistance, aid or help. I will give you. But I won't give you 1 paisa as tax. It's a matter of principle." He said, "Who are you to tax me? You are a businessman. Come do your business, sell your product of a profit and get out. You have no business to do. Collect a tax from. Who are you to collect tax?" He said, "The Arcot, now the Nawabs have given me." He said, "I don't care who they are. They are not my kings." So this was the cause enough for a battle. He had lived in a place called Palayam Kurchi, small village. And that was his headquarters, the fortress. They were not used to wars and things like that, but still they fought very bravely. A lot of lives were lost. And Kattabomma was defeated in the battle. But he said, "I will not flee." He said, "What is running away from a battlefield is not our culture. It is not our Vedic culture. I don't run away from battlefields." They worshipped a deity called Jakkamma. He said, "How will I face Jakkamma? I will not run away from the battlefield." Then finally he was asked to say, "Please go." And he and his brothers were asked to go into hiding. They went into hiding. They were putting together a small army, surely to come back and defeat the British. But then you have our friends. So one of our good friends, okay, he was called the ruler of Pudukkotai. Pudukkotai is a place there. Pudukkotai Tondaiman family, who had close association with the Muslim invaders, betrayed him. And he was arrested and a public trial was held. And he was told, "If you plead for mercy, we will forgive you." He says, "What mercy? Mercy from whom? What mercy do I ask?" He said, "You people should ask for mercy, not the other way around." And many of his own, supporting kingdoms let him down. But he was hanged. And on the day he was hanged, he said, "Don't tie my eyes. I would like to die with my eyes open. Even today, the place Palayan Kurchi and the place where he was hanged, the tree on which he is hanged is invoked as a deity. So this happened in late 18th century, 1760 to 1799. Kattabomma was just 39 years old when he was hanged. Have you heard about his story? People from Tamil Nadu would have seen a story in which Shivaji Ganeshan acted. Otherwise, have you really learned?
I know from Shivaji Ganeshan only.
Yeah. So that's the story. Now let us come to 19th century. I'm going to take you to the period 1886 to 1911. It was a Tirunelveli junction. There was a British collector by name Robert Ashe. And there was a moment inspired by a person called Neelakanta Brahmachari. They were of the opinion that, look, then there is somebody invading our land.
He is talking in English.
Yeah, yes, I'm talking in English.
नाही समजून ऐकते मी मला परमिशन दिली.
Please mute your mics if you're. Hello, please mute your mics, please. So, Raman sir, I'll come back to you. So what happens is, during the time, there was a moment, especially this moment was referred to as Bharat Mata Sangam. This moment felt very strongly that invaders are invading your land. They are looting and plundering. You are not supposed to say, Ayyo Baba, don't do. It's a sign of weakness. If somebody is coming and looting me and you are going to plead before them, no, we will not hit you, go back. Give him one or two, the fellow will run back. Where necessary, if you don't hit back, it is a sign of weakness. That's what these people believed in. Not only believed in, they quoted the Bhagavad Gita. When Arjun says, I will not kill my grandfather and how can I kill my gurus? They are Mahanubhavas. How can I kill them? Krishna says they may be Mahanubhavas, but they are standing on the Adharma side. If you don't kill, they will kill you. So these people believed strongly in self-righteousness. And they said the Britisher must be hit back. So there was this collector called Robert Ashe. He was going with his family. A young fellow, just 25 years old, inspired by Neelakanta Brahmachari. This fellow's name was Vanchinathan. Dressed properly, he came into the Tirunelveli junction. He went into the first class coach. He was having that nice, that South Indian style kurmi. He was properly dressed in dhoti shirt. He pulled out a German automatic revolver and shot Ashe 3 times. Before they could catch, he went into the another compartment of this and shot himself. He said, I will not be held on trial by invaders. My country holds me as a criminal, that's a different thing. That fellow is an invader and he will pass sentence. And then he was greatly inspired by the works and by the freedom movement and by the inspirational speech and songs of Subramanya Bharati. Subramanya Bharati in Tamil composed a song, Achhamillai, Achhamillai, Achhaminbadillai. That means there is nothing to fear about. What are you fearing about? He was inspired by that. And Vanchinathan was one of those persons who he was a contributor for India's freedom movement. 1896. He was just 25 years old in 1911 when he shot himself. From South India, I will now take you to Bengal. In Bengal, this year, the years between 1894, you will see that all of these happened, late 18th century, late 19th century. This happened between 1894 and 1934. That was a time when a lot of people were inspired by the Indian revolutionary group was was inspired, was a very inspired group. And there was a person by name Surjo Sen. It is called Surya Kumar Sen. In Bengali, Ya is always referred to as Ja. Surjo Sen. He was a school teacher, so people used to refer to him as Master Da. Da there means Dada, brother. Bengali Da is brother. So like, I grew up in Bengal. Many of my friends call me Mohan Da. People who are younger to me call me Mohan Da. So this person, Surjo Da, Master Da, masterminded. He wanted to, he said all these peaceful methods won't work with these fellows. Peaceful work methods will work with people who have basic, values. These people say one thing and do one thing. They will talk peace in the front and stab you from behind. There is a saying, there is a beautiful saying. My Guruji used to say that in India, our system is namaste, trust. Whereas the Western system, they will hug and, what are they doing for? They're hugging and feeling you, whether you've got arms hidden in your dress or something like guns or knives hidden. That's why they hug and feel you and all this. That's what my Guruji used to say. So he said, this is not the way to treat those fellows. So he and a few of his revolutionary friends raided the armory in Chittagong. In Chittagong, they raided the armory. They could not take away the ammunition. They raided the armory and they hoisted the Indian flag. But before that, they ran away. They could not complete the mission. They ran away. Then the British, by that time it was a British force. It was no longer East India Company. The British forces started hunting them around. And finally, Surya Sen many of these revolutionary friends were caught. They went through inhuman torture, but they did not reveal where Surya Sen was hiding. Surya Sen, discussed as a monk, as fruit seller, as some kind of various dresses he did, and kept away from the British forces. Finally, he was arrested. Okay. Who betrayed him? They used to say, any Indian who betrayed or worked against the nation, they're given the titles Rao Bahadur, Rai Bahadur, Rai Chaudhuri, all these titles. They are people who betrayed Indians to the British. Rao Bahadur. My grandfather is a Rao Bahadur. Please understand and ask them, who did he betray? That should be one question they should ask. Rai Bahadur, Rai Chaudhuri, all these people are people who essentially betrayed Indian freedom fighters. No two opinions on that. Okay. Then later on, they all joined. They said, yes, we'll form this government, that government, help you. They say, running with the hare and hunting with the foxes, kind of people. And it is the curse of India. He was betrayed. Who betrayed him? His own cousin called Netro Sen betrayed him. The British promised him a Rai Bahadur title and 10 villages or something so that he can become a zamindar. And Surya Sen was arrested. He was put to brutal torture. With pliers, they plucked out his nails. From each day, one nail. They took hammer and hit him so that all his teeth were cracked, so that he could not shout Vande Mataram. On the day his death sentence was carried out, his half-dead body was carried and hanged in Calcutta jail. And for doing this, Nestra Singh was promised Rai Bahadur title. Rao Bahadur, Rai Bahadur title. So one of Surya Sen's assistants came one day to Netra Singh's head in the presence of in the house and in the presence of his wife, cut his head off. Netra Sen was beheaded by a revolutionary follower of Surya Sen. Naturally, police came. They asked the wife, what happened? She said, I don't know. Did it happen in your place? I was cooking in the kitchen. I heard a noise. I came and found that he was dead. She knew who the revolutionary was. She never betrayed him. When someone asked her, she said, the person who betrays my mother, Amar Desher Gaddar, he should die even a worse death than this. This was an unlettered Bengali household lady in 1934. And Surjo Sen was just 40 years old when he was put to death. Calcutta has a street called Surjo Sen Street. And many of us do not even know what is Surjo Sen or who is Surjo Sen. Okay. Now the next part of the story, and then I will throw open some of you can also share stories, are about three youngsters. Two were aged 21 and one was aged 19. Their name, Binoy Krishna Basu, born in 1908. Dinesh Gupta, born in 1911. Sudhir Gupta, born in 1908. His name was Badol. Bengal always had, people have the regular name, they will have another name also. They will have a short name. He was called Badol. The three were called Binoy, Badol, Dinesh. They were inspired by our revolutionary leader, Subhash Chandra Bose, whose birthday falls just few days from now. 23rd of January is Subhash Chandra Bose's birthday. Don't forget, please mark your calendar and celebrate. Light a lamp for India's brave freedom fighters that day. Subhash Chandra Bose, he formed what was called Bengal Revolutionaries. And these three people were inspired by Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose only said, these people, there is a saying in Tamil, people who understand Tamil, I'll tell you, there's a saying in Tamil. They say, Adi oduvara mari, annan thambi kuda odavama. They said, where necessary, give a nice little slap, everything will be okay. Hit back where necessary. When the fellow does not follow dharma, when he is exploiting you, when he is enslaving you, what are you pleading him? Why are you folding hands with the wrong people? That way, lage raho, Munna Bhai said, na, idhar tamacha maro to idhar dikhao. Idhar bhi maro to wapas maro. He said, where necessary, will you not hit back at your invaders? If somebody comes and harms the women folk in your house, will you tell him, no, beta, please, chhod do, ye tumhari maa ki jaisa hai. What kind of, philosophy they are following. These fellows said, forget those philosophies. And the jails in India were places where revolutionaries were inhumanly tortured. So in these places, these three fellows decided that we must teach these fellows. See, even today, in Kolkata, we have a place called Writers' Building. Writers' Building used to house all those coolies and all those fellows working in for the British East India Company and places like that. And we are calling it the seat of our power, and that's where our government runs. What self-respect you have? So they said we must storm Writers' Building. And there was an Inspector General of Prisons called Simpson. Okay, guli korte hobe. We have to shoot him dead. These fellows were properly dressed, came into the Writers' Building and opened fire. Simpson was killed and few others were grievously injured. But it was one is too many. So they all got the gun battle, they lost. And when they lost, one fellow, okay, he consumed cyanide pill and died on the spot. Two others, Dinesh and Badol, shot themselves. Badol died on the spot, Dinesh survived. So a trial was held. Treason against the government, treason against the state. A death sentence was passed and Dinesh was hanged to death, just 19 years of age. Nobody in India ever heard who BBD was. Only a few years ago in Kolkata, there was a place called Dalhousie Square, named after the British fellow. We renamed it BBD Bagh. Binoy, Badol, Dinesh, Bagh. I have selected a number of such people. Some of them you know about what's his name? Bhagat Singh. You know about Udham Singh. Thank God, recently because of the movie. You have recently heard about Jatin Das. Okay. These are the people. So now coming back to our song, De di hame azadi bina khadag bina dhal. Without anger, without shield and sword, we won freedom. Not one, give. What are we begging for our freedom? We were not given freedom. These revolutionaries put the fear of God into British, they ran. The situation after World War, they know if one more set of things start like this, I will be finished. Imagine India's population 30 crore and they were about a few 100,000. They would be destroyed. They knew, they ran. And while running, they established an agency. They established an agency of people who will do chamchagiri for them and wrote their history, that British did wonders for India. And in our history books, shamefully I have to admit, I studied a history book in which I did not hear who Vanchi Nagan was. I did not know who was Velu Nachiyar. I did not know who was Kuili. I did not know who was Binoy Badol Dinesh. When they renamed the street Surjo Sen Street, I said, who is Surjo Sen? This was the state of me as a teenager, as a 20-year-old. History, we should be allowed to discover our history and we should have pride in our history. As long as your history is written by hunters, the lion will never ever get to see the story. I picked up just these few stories. Not for criticizing anybody, not for any propaganda. If I didn't tell this story, my heart would, I would die a very sad man. This story has to be told. Each one of you has to tell India's story. Each one has to go ahead and tell stories. Go into history. Each state, go into Maharashtra, read about Veer Savarkar. There are certain states which are very proud. Why are they proud? For example, Marathas are very proud people. Why are they proud? Because they never did my baap to the British. They did never buy baap to anybody for that matter. There was a guy called Tipu Sultan who was trying to be friendly. Maratha was very clear. He is also an invader. No friendliness with this fellow. I don't want friendliness with any invader. So 2 burglars have come into the house. To throw out the second burglar, you are being friendly with the first burglar. Hey, kya baat hai? Nana Fadnavis said, dono sale bahar ke hain. Nikalo bahar. That's why Marathas are very proud people. And if you are not proud for your country, they will look down at you. Die for your nation. Don't, something like that. It should come. See, your nation, it should. If you don't have anything, doesn't matter. If you have Desh Bhakti, the country will be great. India's biggest problem has been betrayers, people with us who have always let us down. Even now, there is a major split happening in India's psyche. We should be aware of this. The psyche is happening, they, among the majority. So if the split is not bridged properly, it's not a healthy side. It's not a healthy side. The 5 stories I picked up today are meant for you to, it should heat up your systems. When you think about Velu Nachiyar, when you think about Surya Sen, you should lose sleep for 10-15 days. Your BP should go up. When you hear the story of Binay Badal Dinesh, you should look at your own children. Hey, how lucky you have been able to give them a future when these fellows at 19 and 21 sacrificed their lives. Bhagat Singh was 25. Udham Singh was 26 or 27. Udham Singh went to Jallianwala Bagh, applied tilak. Is mitti ke tilak dharo, ye dharti hai bhagwan ki, he put tilak. There was a Lala Lajpat Rai who was hit on the head. People who sacrifice their lives. So we should remember this. So my attempt was very deliberate. I wanted to disturb you from inside. I want you to feel agitated. I want you to feel bad deep inside that we as a country have let down our country from 1920 to 1940. These rascals should have been thrown out in 1900. We shouldn't have fought alongside with them for the World War. They invaders. Invaders have no place in India. Traitors have no place in India. Tell them clearly. You tell them. The government will not tell you. Tell them. Somebody talks anti-India, don't say, hota hai, hota hai. You say, if you're anti-India, leave. Why are you in India? If somebody says, I am afraid to stay in India, you say, I can buy you a ticket. Why don't you go outside? People who made money, food, eat, and shat in India talk about being afraid in India. Go settle elsewhere. So, read these stories. Don't read only Binag, Khatak, Binag, Gyan, Bina Dal. Some Sant de diya humko kamal. Kya kamal kar? Because of the scare of these people, you took credit. I did all the fighting. The next generation took the credit. So sorry for my strong language, but we should be proud of our people who shed blood for this country. Namaskar. Thank you very much for listening to me. If anybody would like to share anything, like I said, I'm not here to criticize anyone, not find fault. A lot of people sacrificed a lot. But when I read about these stories, it disturbed me a lot. Okay, when I listened to stories of some of these great warriors in young age, they lost their life. I feel deeply hurt. My sleep goes. My sugar level increases. But I'm welcoming all of them because I know deep down the nationalist will never ever die. That is my thought. Thank you very much. Ramanji, would you like to share, please? After
Yes,
that,
sir.
After
Yes,
that,
sir.
yeah, yes, Ramanji.
I hope I am audible
Yeah.
because I have been having some mic problem for quite a few days. Sorry. In addition, I see, yes, there were the great heroes. There were those who, in their very tender age, gave away their lives. And there were people who languished for something like 15, 20 years in Andaman, in cellular jail. They suffered inhuman treatment, extreme torture, which details of which, if we read, it will make us sleepless for days together. In addition to this, you see, like a Bhagat Singh or Jatin Das and a host of others who gave their life. There are unsung heroes whose name we do not know. When Gandhiji did his salt satyagraha, Rajaji did it for Tamil Nadu, yeah, all over India, Dandi March, and one of the unforgettable pictures you get in your mind is the thousands of people following the leader, hordes and hordes of people, nameless people. You can't record their names. You can't even count their numbers. So, and people suffering incarceration, torture, inhuman treatment. It is a very sad story. Unfortunately, the present generation is unaware of all this. It is a nice thing if we remind them this is what happened. It will be a nice thing. Incidentally, as per Veerapandiya Kattabomman, of which Mr. Mohan had so much to say, his place was called Panjalangurchi, not Panjalangurchi. Panjalangurchi is the correct name.
Correct, yeah, right.
And the one who betrayed, actually he had two. One was the Tondaman, the other was Ettappan.
Yes.
You see, there's a famous dialogue also, Ettappa, etc., etc. That is also there. That's only a historical minor detail which perhaps you lost sight of that. And in my own family, I wanted to say, I had an uncle who resigned his job and joined the Salt Satyagraha, went to jail and everything. Of course, you see, it is very nice to read about ideal people, but after coming from jail, he had a miserable life, extreme poverty and all that, no help. And when Free India came into being, well, the Congress government in those times, it was gracious enough to recognize his sacrifice they gave him a piece of land, which helped him in a very big way. He was first reluctant to take it, but we all insisted upon him to kindly take it because there is nobody to help you. You must accept it. He did accept it. He had some decent life thereafter, and he led a comfortable life, a reasonably comfortable life. That's all. So there are millions and millions. We won't know their names. We won't know any detail about them. But we should remember this huge crowd of people who went out of their system and followed their leader. They did such tremendous service to the cause of India's freedom. That is all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sauji. Welcome, Sauji.
Thank you, Roman. Yeah, I am there, very much there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I sort of joined a little late, about 10 minutes. So I missed the very beginning, I think. Maybe I must have missed probably 5 minutes because it takes 5 minutes to start. Anyway, all that I wanted to say is, for some time now, myself and my wife, we are hooked to one serial that is running now. It's called Ahilya Bai Holkar. So obviously it's a TV serial, so they have fictionalized it, this thing. But I also a little bit read about her. She was a revolutionary. She continued to be a queen. And she continued to be the daughter-in-law of the king and all that. But her ideas are far, far ahead of her times. For example, widow remarriage. I mean, she was ostracized by the local society, but she was very clear what she wants to do, how the state is to be run. It's a tremendous thing. So that's, I thought, and she's also in 18th century, 1700 something. So it matches with your storyline. Thank you.
I would also like you to look up in the Google the story of a queen from the Konkan region, Abbakka.
I've heard that, but I have not read. Yeah.
You know, in that Konkan region, in their hometown, there is a center. It's called the Abbakka Circle, and they have maintained a statue of her. She beat back the Spaniards so badly that they could never return. Her husband betrayed her.
Oh, God.
Abbakka. Please read the story of Abbakka.
Yes. I heard about him, but nowadays everything is available.
We should read the story. See, we are looking at early 20th century, 19, 20, 30, that time. Bhagat Singh had to escape from his hometown. And they were all looking for him. Imagine a traditional orthodox Sardar shaving off his hair. And he was traveling in train with his bhabhi. So they asked her, who is this person? She said, this is my husband. She told her devar, her brother-in-law, they don't even talk of any other person as their husband. They don't even think of any other person. This lady tells the British police, not British police, Indian fellows only. Where did British police?
Yes.
Only Indian fellows hit India. Then when they shot people at Jallianwala Bagh, there were 3 white men. Yes. All others were Indians who shot Indians.
That's true.
So, and all these people crowned Rai Bahadur, Rao Bahadur, Rez Bahadur, that Bahadur. And this lady said, this is my husband. We should see the emotional, we are looking only at the physical sacrifice. You should look at the emotional sacrifice of an Orthodox lady. We should look at the emotional sacrifice of Netra Singh's wife. Somebody killed her husband. She says, I don't know who killed him. And she says, anybody who betrays my country deserves this. It's an emotional sacrifice. See, India is a nation. Yesterday, some other speech also I mentioned. Much before others were learning how to crawl out of their caves, we had a drainage system. We had libraries, the burning of which took 3 months before the fire went down. That was the culture. Our history should talk to us about the greatness of our culture. Entire
Absolutely.
chapters should be devoted to Takshashila. Chapters should be devoted to Shivaji, Chhatrapati, to Abbakas and to Kuilis and Vanchinadans. I will say write short notes on Vanchinadhan. We are now learning history as dictated by the other fellow and by some Indian agents who have rewritten to suit their convenience. It's only in India, the capital city of India, you have the names of the invaders as the streets.
Yeah, incidentally, apparently Ahilya Bai's statue is there in Parliament,
Uh-huh.
and apparently she is the only lady whose statue is there in Parliament. So
Yeah, in
This-
Kolkata, what happened in the 40s in response to the direct action call, there was a governor there called Suravardi. Okay, that Suravardi gave orders to the Pathan regiment. He said, shoot these fellows. And thousands of Indians were shot in the evening when they were returning home from work. My father used to tell me, he jumped across dead bodies and came home. My mother was not sure whether her father will come back. And in Kolkata, we have Suravardi Avenue. Is there no limit to our shamelessness? That's what I ask.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Boliye. Tandonji. We have also a veteran here, JB Bhatnagarji. I would like to hear from. Tandonji, you would like to speak? Boliye. Ramakant Tandonji. Sir, Tandon Sahab, boliye, please.
His audio is not connected.
Okay. So, Bhatnagarji, would you like to say something? Bhatnagarji? Lalit, boliye, Bhatnagarji, please unmute yourself and speak.
Well, I'm really very, very impressed, and I was engrossed in your stories, which I always, not only stories, but the way the India and Indians at that time, my parents used to suffer. But well, I have one thing to tell you. I will add what you said. We Indians are the enemy of our India. On the century rule. And we are still doing it. It is not that our culture has been changed. But one thing which is my life story, and I have seen in my eyes, in 1938, my birth, I was 8 years old when the partition took place in Lahore. I born in Lahore only. Well, I do not know others because at the price, that was the time when I was a child and I didn't know what is happening around. My father was in charge of Lahore at the time in police department and he was DYSP. My grandfather was DIG. I'm Zoom. My granddaughter had come anyway. And my grandfather was in police department. He was serving long time. As you said, Jihaduri. He has been doing it. Because every person who is doing some service, government service, ought to say Adab. Anyway, I do not know much about it, but I know when they both left the job and become revolutionary. And I opened my eyes during that time in 1938 when we were in Lahore. We have got 3 houses, big houses. I used to play only and going to school after 5 years. But I distinctly remember everything, whatever I have seen. Rest, I know. My father was given a duty that to catch Bhagat Singh.
Oh,
And that time, my father was having all the things under his control. And this I have heard, not seen. The story I've heard that he was once posted in Ikattha Sakral, a tehsil of Multan district, just to
oh.
he come to know that some revolutionary meetings were going on. And somebody revolutionary jumped the fence and came to shoot my father. He was living in a guest house. When he come to know that somebody has come, it was a dark time. He took out his arm, went in pajama outside, and hide himself somewhere where he is seen two. One is Muslim and another person saying that now he is not in the house, I have gone and he is not in there. He must be after us. He says, Bhagat Singh ko bachana padega.
Hmm.
The other fellow Muslim says, Bhagat Singh ko bachana padega. And asked that Aldi or Chowkidar where he is now, where he has gone. And they were searching Chowkidar. By the time he fired on them and they jumped out and went away.
Hmm.
That incident was told to me by my mother.
Hmm.
Now the thing is, that was a period when he thought that they are fighting for the country. And he made his father, my grandfather, to accept that we should not serve them.
Hmm.
They are killing our people and we are responsible for them to kill. And then first my father resigned and then my grandfather resigned.
Wow.
And thereafter they became a assistant for all such things. And there was some Muslim also, which is called a lady called Fatima Durrani or something. I don't remember, but Fatima, because she used to come to my grandfather's when they become revolutionary. She was also from a very, very rich family. And she gave us sometimes toffees to eat, some sweets to eat, some chickies to eat. And we were not knowing what is happening here. But then at that time, my father was killed by their own people.
Oh.
What happened? He was marked by the police department, investigated, and found out that there's a person. Once they were going, our own people, meaning that India was shot by India. So I become orphan overnight. And then partition took place about in 1947. We came back from partition with of course, the police support. But in a train to somewhere in Amritsar camp, and thereafter from camp to another camp, ultimately we settled in Jalandhar, Kent. When my schooling started there, overnight we become paupers.
Hmm.
We were on a that everybody was given some ration every day. My sisters, two elder sisters, myself, my mother, my uncle. So this misery we have seen, but a child like me used to think, I become a RSS man. Let me tell you very frankly. I joined army, and there was an inquiry against me. you are a member of a Shakha.
Mhm.
Still, I said yes. I was a child and I used to go to Shakha.
Mhm.
And in my school, I used to go to Shakha. I do all the rituals and those sanskars I have taken. And my elders, my father shed blood for the country. And देर आए दुरुस्त आए जो भी है तो इसलिए अब what I was trying to say that time when I was in army, the inquiry took place, and after a year or so I was exonerated also. Otherwise, then the Indian government at the time, British has gone. In 64, 63 I was commissioned, and at that time I am a Dehradun, and then there was an inquiry by the government of India for that period because RSS was banned.
Hmm.
Who banned RSS? The government of India, the government of Jawaharlal Nehru. And I have got no bones to say. I will tell you frankly, the present government is a real Indian government.
we will we will we will not get into that right now.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because we have people, we would like to make it more as a storytelling session. We would not like to say, but whatever it is, if somebody once asked me, are you a fundamentalist? I said, no, I'm fundamentally an Indian. I'm fundamentally an Indian. Desh Bhakti for this country.
One thing which so Desh Bhakti ke bagar, then you are nobody to eat ration here.
Exactly. Desh Bhakti hai. I only say certain things for my country, whatever I can, I should be able to do. We cannot be Desh Drohis.
Cannot.
Good. Thank you, Bhatnagarji. We'll ask Mr. Kumar to speak now. He wants to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And it is wonderful to just listen about the unsung heroes. I am proud to say that I belong to a freedom fighters family. My grandfather, Dorisama Iyengar, was a freedom fighter also. And he started schools, education. Actually, at this time, there were only mission schools run by Christian missionaries or some schools supported by Christian missionaries. So in protest of that, he started some schools and he was taken into custody. And after that, he continued, came and one school started by him 1917 is being run even now. Actually, we are running the school now. And in 2017, we completed the century, 100 years of that. And he has just traveled through the villages to just educate people. And he was just very, very, very particular about giving poor education. Education is the most important thing at that time. So the awareness creation through the education was this thing. And he was not very popularly known freedom fighter, one of the unsung heroes in your words, as you said. And it was not very popular. And actually, I have now, I'm asking the school children of my school to just prepare a note on unsung hero freedom fighters. Each of them have been given a task of just inquiring with their elders or reading through the books and researching on that. And we are collecting information. And anytime if you just visit our library, you can just see the details they have collected. All the small children have collected have been compiled into an unsung heroes of freedom fighters.
Wonderful.
And
great work.
Yeah, I can just share also whenever that time permits through the WhatsApp group also.
Wonderful. Great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Kumar is my good friend of over 30 years. He's been quietly doing a lot of work. Excellent work he has been doing. Social service without talking much. An amazing worker. In fact, we have to remember certain, for example, in Bombay, they used to have this tiffin dabba service. The people there working for the tiffin dabba service, you ask any lowest worker, he used to say, I'm working for Chhatrapati Maharaj. He never used to even mention the word Shivaji. He will say, I'm working for Chhatrapati Maharaj. and I cannot do anything wrong. He said, I may be sick, but somebody depending on my service for food should not go hungry. They say one fellow was refused bonus for 3 months. He said, Jane, for the sake of 3 months salary, why should I deprive somebody of food? See, we come from great cultures, like he was talking about Ahilyabai Holkar. Then very few have heard about people, Bhaji Sindhya. There are amazing heroes of that side. Amazing heroes. And somewhere along the way, our history books have left this out. And it is our duty to educate our next children. In fact, I will be very happy sometimes, when this pandemic fear goes, I would like to come to Kumar Sir's school and listen to the children tell me stories, not tell them, listen to them tell me stories about unsung heroes. We people should listen more. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you very much for blessing us with your presence and being very kind and sharing all that you know. I would like everybody to participate eagerly, become members of Seniors Today, subscribe to our journal, donate what you can, because this is a moment which can change the fiber of India. Like I was so happy, when Bhatnagarji was being his granddaughter came. So we can tell great stories to our grandchildren. We can tell stories to our grandchildren and tell them in such a fashion. We don't want any hate. We want people to understand fact as fact.
Lakshmi sir want to say something.
Yes, please. हाँ जी, लक्ष्मी नारायण जी, लैक्स भी हमारे बहुत पुराने दोस्त हैं यार, 30-40 years की दोस्ती है उनसे.
Oh yeah, बिल्कुल.
Hi, Lex ji.
Hi, good evening to all. Lovely session. I enjoyed very much. A couple of points that I just want to make may not be very relevant to the session that we have had, but nevertheless, I thought I'll share it. You spoke about the Dabbawala system in Mumbai. इसके बारे में चर्चा होती है. It's a Six Sigma compliant thing, I mean, they have never failed in their delivery. The accuracy of their delivery is close to 99.9%.
क्या बात.
Yeah, and that is regardless of what is the season, whether it is rain, whether it is storm, whatever, it just happens. So it's an amazing thing. You can always say hats off to the Dabbawala community that ensures everybody has his or her food.
Exactly. They say when Prince Charles came to India, he wanted to meet them. Those Dabbawala said, you come to meet us. We won't come to meet you in Governor Palace. Because we have our deliveries to take.
Absolutely. The priority is very clear.
That was Dabbawala.
Yeah. Another point, I'm mostly directing this to Abhishek. When actually this kind of sessions happen, which are not stories, these are realities. So maybe we should christen this particular session as not a storytelling, but something sharing of facts and the reality. Reality is more enhancing than the truth very often.
Yeah.
So I think we could probably look at this. And the third point was, we have seen a lot of strong people, like Marathas. We have seen Shivaji, the guerrilla stuff, and we have seen Sardars and warriors and Kshatriyas and Rajasthanis. So we have a lot of people who have been fighters. Though allegedly, I was not born then, but what I have read is that non-violence has been the say when it comes to our freedom. But even Mahatma Gandhi, who propagated non-violence, has made a statement. And that is the theme of a Hindi movie called Mera Gaon Mera Desh. What it says is, if there is a choice between violence and cowardice, I'll choose violence. This is what Mahatma Gandhi had to say. So I thought I'll just bring this onto the table as food for thought. Nothing beyond that. Thanks a lot for all the facts that have been shared. I really enjoyed veteran Bhatnagar's session as well. Besides, of course, Mohan, Raman sir. It was really good. And so with Mr. Sahu, so it's enlightening all of us who were not part of the session. I mean, part of the growing period of 30s and 40s. So here we are almost getting the first-hand information, though it is hearsay. I mean, what veteran Bhatnagar has said is, yes, probably experienced it. And that is very invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
very much.
Sanjeevni ji will, sorry, sir. Sanjeevni ji will take your, story in next session. I
Okay.
hope you don't mind. Yeah, yeah.
I have one small
Ah.
suggestion.
Yeah.
You see, you want people to register to sit here and enjoy your program. Yeah, this registration may put off some people. I'd like you to just examine whether there is a real need for registration for coming and sitting.
This was discussed in earlier